This Word in Your Ear is brought to you thanks to NordVPN. VPN, as you probably know, stands for Virtual Private Network, which is a way to keep your data safe on the internet, whether you're logging in either at home or abroad. VPN protects your identity and encrypts your data so that nobody can steal that identity. And at the same time, it enables you to access the internet via servers in more than 50 different countries. This means you can often sidestep region restrictions and stream movies and TV programs from all around the world. Because the great truth about streaming, which is the film you want to see, is streaming always in another country. In my travels recently on NordVPN, just now I've been watching The Jerk with Steve Martin, The Wrong Arm of the Law with Peter Sellers. I've been flicking between The Bold and the Beautiful and The Young and the Restless on American daytime TV, and catching up with the Steamy series, which currently has the entire population of Romania glued. Meanwhile, you can take advantage of a deal where you can try NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/yourear, or just use the code YourEar to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and one additional month for free and a bonus gift. It's risk-free because there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Full details in the show notes.
You're listening to a podcast from The Word.
So here we are. We're in Soho, Mark. This is very exciting. We're down at the basement of 21 Soho, just off Soho Square, which is where we're going to be for two Word in Your Ear
We are.
events.
We're going to be on the 25th of September, where we're talking to Richard Morton-Jack about his fantastic book about Nick Drake, and also Cathy Unsworth talking about Season of the Witch, which is her story about being a teenage goth.
Absolutely. And then we're back here the following month with John Higgs. John, who wrote an excellent book about the Beatles and James Bond not long ago. And he's just had his 10-year-old book about the KLF republished in a hardback edition. Going to be
terrific book as well.
Talking about that. And he's also involved in writing the book with our other guest.
With Ian Brodie. He wrote the book about Ian Brodie's, his memoir about his life in the Lightning Seeds, which will be a very good story. That's going to be really interesting, I think.
So
Ian Brodie and John Higgs.
And John Higgs. And so, if you haven't got your tickets already, make sure you do so. We've just had the great excitement of walking through Soho. You don't go in Soho very often.
Not that often, but nearly every time I do, I see somebody well known. There's always Stephen Fry scurrying.
It's usually Stephen Fry or Paul McCartney. Somebody like that, somebody immensely famous.
It's a member of the private eye staff. But today
was no exception, was it?
I'd say we're topping it. We've moved to a new level, actually. We passed someone who I can categorically confirm was the drummer of Principal Edward's Magic Theatre, who I saw in, I think, 1971 on stage at the Wheelie Festival playing a song called Kettering. So there you go. Yeah, actually, he used to live quite near me in Chiswick, and I recognise him. Lynn Edwards of Principal Edward's Magic Theatre. I thought that guy looks familiar. It suddenly struck me to see past.
For the benefit of anybody who is not familiar with the theatre, can you recapitulate their story? They're a kind of alumnus of John Peel's Dandelion.
John Peel absolutely loved them, and I think he put out some of their tracks on one of his compilations, actually. What are they? They're a kind of, hippie, collective theatre group. Songs, people dressed in strange robes, pointed hats.
Very often a dog on stage.
Dog on stage. Very well done. Yeah. So kind of rambling, kind of commune-dwelling people of the type of the Global Village Trucking Company. They're in that kind of bracket, really. But yeah, Peel loved them. And we were talking about those Dandelion compilations. What was the name of that Dandelion compilation? There is some fun going forward.
There will be some fun going forward, I think it was called.
That's right.
I think it had a picture of John Peel in the bath on the cover.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
With a naked woman?
With a naked woman. Oh, God.
It was pretty much obligatory. In those
Things
days.
you cannot do. I can't even barely even say it, actually.
So,
Lord.
So the drummer of the Magic Theatre probably thinks he goes through life nowadays unremarked and unrecognised. Well, how wrong he is.
How wrong he is. Well, I mean, it happened to us. We were at a show. The Paul McCartney's, which we discussed actually. Paul McCartney's wonderful photographic show at the National Portrait Gallery, and this girl came up to us. And I thought she was going to tell us to stop taking photographs. Actually, we were taking photographs of ourselves with some Paul McCartney's pictures in the background. She said, "I've just got to say, I was a word reader and word subscriber, and I really loved the magazine. I'm so sorry it's not there." We were just thinking how she must have thought this was absolutely priceless. The two of us, all these years later, still knocking about together in Soho, gone to see a Paul McCartney exhibition, and now taking selfies of ourselves with McCartney's prints in the background.
It's pathetic.
Oh, God almighty. We're so on brand.
It puts our characterisation of Mick and Keith and Ronnie as being compo, cleggy and foggy from the Less Than Summer Wine rather in the shade, doesn't it, really? And no, but it was always nice to be recognised by a grateful word reader. I always think somebody's going to complain and say, I haven't done an issue for 10 years and I paid a subscription.
Yeah, I'm still on direct debit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was nice. That's our adventure in the Wild West End.
And how good was the show?
So we went to see... Well, you've seen it before.
I've seen it. This is my second time. It's called 1963 to 64, Eyes of a Storm.
Eye of the Storm, yes.
That is the title. And it's McCartney's photographs from that period. In kind of, I suppose, in three sections, really, aren't there? There's the kind of UK stuff, 1963, and then there's the kind of late 63 Paris section, and then 64 from Ed Sullivan kind of onwards, their first trip to America. I thought it was absolutely wonderful.
But isn't it just, as you said to me, it's kind of... It's a memento of a period where they suddenly had enough money to buy the toys they wanted.
Yeah.
And the toy that Paul McCartney wanted was a proper camera, not an Instamatic. Actually, it's probably pre-Instamatic in those days, So a proper camera.
Proper camera.
And also he could afford to pay for the film and the processing. And so it's a real fad, isn't it? The exhibition is a kind of a memento of a 9-day wonder, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is.
That happens to coincide with these absolutely extraordinary events.
Yeah.
It's a very well done exhibition. We're apparently out there on a quiet day. Well, I hate to think what it's like on a busy day.
It was heaving, wasn't it?
Because there are a lot of people in there today. And it starts with, early shots of them doing jukebox jury.
Sure, those pieces of David Jacobs.
I must actually, slight detour. I want to tell you about this. I didn't warn you about this. I'm talking about jukebox jury. It's this year is the 100th anniversary of the Radio Times, and I do stuff for the Radio Times. And they asked me, they got in touch with me and said, we're doing 10 covers from the past, historical covers, and we want people who were there at the time to write something about them, what they represent.
Can you reveal what you chose?
No, I didn't choose one. They said, "Can you do this one?" And they gave me the cover of the Radio Times from, I think it's December 1963, when they appeared on Jukebox Jury, when the Beatles appeared on Jukebox Jury. And I said, great, I can do that, I remember that. Now, I wrote a piece about it, only a short piece. And one of the things I wrote a little bit about, but I feel I can talk to you more about, was the fact I had to mention in just a couple of sentences, this is a relic of an era when groups were always represented photographically by a number of cut-out heads. Do you remember this? And so what you have is, the graphics on the cover, Jukebox Jury, and then the Beatles are down the side.
That's right.
Kind of thing, stacked up on top of each other. And if you
go slightly wacky and slightly crazy,
if you go back and look at Fabulous magazine from 1963,
that's what they were like, wasn't it?
Or my other
little drop-ins at the top right-hand corner,
and then you go further on in America in 16 magazine and Herman's Hermits and the Monkees and all that, and Tiger Beat and all these things. How did they present groups? Always was as a series for heads.
Yeah.
They completely cut them out. The designer didn't want to be bothered trying to accommodate an odd shape into their cover.
But isn't it a really good idea? Because think how many...
No, it's a terrible idea.
No, because you think how many more pop stars you can get on the cover if you don't have their body.
Well,
so it's a commercial idea.
But it's
not. I mean, aesthetically, it's terrible. But in terms of selling magazines, it's a great idea.
Well, I'm not even sure, because I think it fundamentally... it takes away something that is a huge part of the appeal of those groups, which made those groups in the 60s suddenly a lot more magnetic than the groups you'd seen before, which is that you saw them in the real world.
Yeah.
There were photographs, the early pictures of the Beatles, on the docks at Liverpool, all that kind of thing. Pictures of the Rolling Stones hanging around in Chelsea. It was the background. They lived in the same world as you do.
Yeah, it does not give the impression that they're three-dimensional.
They don't look real at all. They look like
cartoons.
comic figures.
You've actually you've taken them over and you're just using them as little chess pieces to move around a board.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I want to say about Jukebox Jury. And I've said before, they appeared on Jukebox Jury, and they reviewed one of the records they reviewed was "Kiss Me Quick" by Elvis Presley, which they're a bit sniffy about. And Paul McCartney says it's like Blackpool on a Saturday afternoon, which at the time was considered a hugely disrespectful thing to say about Elvis Presley.
And about Blackpool.
Possibly. So there they are, And so McCartney's focusing on anything, pointing his camera at anything that looks like showbiz.
Oh, it's so...
It looks as if he's going to take it back to his father in Liverpool and say, look who I saw down in the smoke or whatever, Here's a camera, here's a showgirl, all those kind of things.
It is. It's kind of starstruck, isn't it?
It's really starstruck.
A lot of pictures of David Jacobs because you think, I'm actually in a room with David Jacobs. Obviously, we'll get on to this later, but things change. Things change very rapidly the other way around. The whole world looking at them. But it's so funny because you've got all the... If you're of students of the kind of... the Beatles family as we are, to see Louise Harrison, George's sister, fabulous, looks just like George. Peter Asher, Jane Asher, Frida Kelly from the fan club, Robert Freeman, the photographer,
Brian Somerville,
Judy, who married the secretary who married George Martin. Judy was there.
Oh, Judy Lockhart.
Lockhart Smith. That's right.
Yeah.
So they're all in there, and also a few captions which say "unknown woman," which I think is absolutely brilliant.
Unknown woman is in it all the way.
She appears all the time, and so McCartney is kind of pretending to take a picture of some quite well-known light entertainment presenter, and then turns the camera and focuses on the girl in the back, who's immensely fired up excited about the fact that Paul McCartney is taking a photograph of her. What a little devil!
Absolutely.
So that's good. No,
it really is. You can't help thinking that every time Paul McCartney casts his eyes on what would have been described in those days as a cracking bird.
Yeah.
He thinks,
I'm going to take a picture of her.
I'm going to take a picture of her.
I know.
And...
it is funny. It's funny they're all in black and white too, because you think of the past as being black and white.
Oh God, it's black and white.
I mean, it changes the colour later on. You feel a bit robbed actually, but it's still got immense amounts of the thrill of being a Beatle. That everything around them they're absolutely knocked out about. And the thing that struck me too is that McCartney. It's like the way he wrote songs. He wrote songs in the most organised way. He didn't write songs, he wrote records. We've had this conversation before. And if you watch, Get Back, the bit where he teaches them all, Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and he says, that goes like that, that goes like that, that goes like that. He knows every single part. He can hear it in his head. And, Come and Get It for Badfinger, that demo he did in about, half an hour. Every single part he's worked out. And actually, I thought he took pictures the same way. Because if John Lennon had taken pictures, John Lennon's pictures would have been kind of sense impressionistic, and they would have been slightly pretentious. They were broadly about John Lennon, actually. Yeah. Even if they were pictures of somebody else, it would be telling something more about John Lennon by the way he took them. Whereas McCartney's pictures have a kind of architectural, structural quality, which is fantastic. Really thought through. Yeah. You get lots of context. They tell a story. You're backstage in a theatre. You're on the streets in Paris. You see the people on the boulevard. You see Parisian paparazzi taking pictures of them. It's just, I thought they were really fantastic. It's just the compositional sense is just brilliant.
As an exhibition, it's really well done.
Yeah.
Very, very well done. The captions are all there.
Yeah.
You want to know who every person is in every picture. Well, I do. I'm fascinated by the supposed minor characters. That you see a picture of Tony Barrow, who was the PR.
Yeah, he wrote the sleeve notes.
Wrote the sleeve notes and Twist and Shout, I think he did. And was Tony Barrow, the man who originated the famous line that our old friend Paul and I always used to repeat, which is "pot picking is fast and furious business."
That's right.
I think he was. Anyway, Tony Barrow, slightly greased back hair, looks as if he ought to be on the fairground in That'll Be the Day.
Yeah.
And then in the same year, what's his name?
Robert Freeman.
Robert Freeman, the photographer, who suddenly looks like
he's got a turtleneck sweater.
The smoothest man you've ever seen.
Got his hair greased back. Looks fantastic.
No, he's not greased back at all. No, that's the point. There's no Brill cream. Barrow Brill cream, not Freeman. That's the big division.
Yeah, because the Beatles were giving up a little too, hadn't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the thing that was different about the Beatles. That the hair was forward, it wasn't back. And 50s, hair goes back.
Yeah.
60s, hair comes forward and goes, right down over the eyes. And then, of course, they go to America, don't they?
Well, that's an amazing bit. It changes its colour. So McCartney's now
changes colour when they go to Palm Beach, when they go to Florida,
and he buys some Kodachrome or something.
And you feel like saying, Paul, no,
stop. Ruins it. But the American bit's amazing because now he's much like the Paris actually, but even more so here. They're the tourist pictures, aren't they? They're pictures taken by somebody in 1964 who's never been to America. And we were talking about this earlier. I mean, I didn't know anybody in 1964 who'd been to America. Not for a year. I didn't go to America myself until 1977. So everything you knew about America you knew from the movies. And they must have been thinking, in February, we're in Florida. My God, it's hot. Yeah. We're surrounded by people wearing bikinis. There are people drinking cocktails. Everything seemed absolutely incredible. And he takes pictures of hotels, takes pictures of police guns. I did the same thing. It's amazing. In 1977, I don't think I'd ever seen a gun in my life. And I took a picture of a policeman's holster with a gun in it. They took pictures of limos. They took pictures from the windows of hotels, showing the distance to the street below.
Yeah, which was exciting.
Yeah, it really is. They took pictures of the advertising hoardings in the street. They took pictures of cinemas. There's one cinema with a thing on the outside saying, Christine Keeler Goes Nudist plus Playgirls. We don't know what this is, but obviously it was just like... They took pictures on the plane.
Yeah,
pictures of them on the plane, just being in the view out of the window of the, of the engines of the plane and the clouds. It's just it's wonderful, and so that's a really exciting part of it. And the other exciting thing is that you're seeing the world of the Beatles from inside the sphere.
Yeah.
So there's one absolutely incredible photograph, beautifully composed again, of him in the back of some kind of limo, and you can see him in the wing mirror. He's positioned himself in the wing mirror with the camera. And outside you can see this massive crowd of people being held back by police with whistles and big jackboots, and they're screaming because they know the Beatles are in that car. Then there's one a bit later where you see a woman who's actually spotted a member of the Beatles just busting out this thing. And it's so exciting. And so he's giving you an impression of what it would be like to be surrounded by these screaming fans and these packs of paparazzi with their cameras, and really loving it. Because at that stage, it also struck me that at that point there was no hindsight.
No.
Nobody had any idea that you were entering into anything that was going to be anything but a really amazing experience. There wasn't going to be another. Now you experience success, you think, I'm going to have to come out of this at some stage. Come out the other side and survive it, But then it's just 100% the thrill of being, the eye of the storm, as he puts it. Amazing.
And it's amazing. So this stuff is sat in a drawer.
Yeah.
For however many years, 60 years, or something like that. You must have known it was there, mustn't you?
Well, I think McCartney is... I get the feeling speeding up, actually, in terms of whatever he can do as regards his legacy. Because he's probably thinking, well, I might not be here in 5 years' time. So whatever I've got to put out, whatever poetry, whatever lyrics, whatever photographs, whatever stuff I've still got, I might as well put out in my lifetime.
And be in control of it.
I mean, exactly. Yeah.
Which he clearly has been with this.
Yeah, he has.
It's very impressive.
It is. And there's a bit where they go to the Ed Sullivan show, and there are really scores, sheets and sheets of pictures of him, you'd think, on that day, particularly with the sound check and all the pressure on them. That's what he was doing, going around photographing, because he just couldn't have been more thrilled We're in America. We're on the Ed Sullivan Show. This may end tomorrow. Let's just preserve.
There's one picture that I like. I don't know if it's New York or Washington, but it's black and white, and it's reproduced really quite big in the exhibition, and it's taken out of a limousine, probably front window or whatever. And on the pavement, the opposite pavement, there are a few cops and then a load of kids. And they are kids. It's really important to say. They're 12, 13. They're not 17,
Yeah.
They're 12, 13. Those were the Beatles people. And they're looking around for the Beatles because they know the Beatles are there. And then one girl's just clearly looked and seen. She's spotted that she's having her picture taken by Paul McCartney. You just think that's an extraordinary thing, because he is taking a picture the like of which nobody has taken before. Because that situation hasn't occurred before.
Well, we were talking about this. You made the really good point. So which is more exciting, to have a picture of the Beatle or to have a picture of yourself taken by a Beatle? And so all the people who appear in those crowd pictures must by now have got copies of this book. It must have got out to them. Someone has said, mate, do you remember that day that 64? Well, have a look at this book. There's you.
Yeah.
It's absolutely extraordinary.
It's amazing. And, I think it closes in the beginning of October, doesn't it, in London. And then it's going to... Where is it going? Virginia.
Virginia. They said it was going to Virginia. That's right.
So, if you want to get around seeing it in London, get on with it.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
The Word Podcast. Prime cuts of popular culture served fresh each week.
So we got sent a thing from...
Jamie Bowman sent me that.
Yeah, Jamie Bowman, wasn't it? That's right. And
he said, you'll like this. And he wasn't wrong. It was a website where somebody's gone to the trouble of working out the bands who have had the most members. Is that
That's
fair?
Pretty much it, yeah.
That's a fair summary. And
I was astonished to find out who had the most. Did that surprise you?
It did.
The group had only been going 40 years. Has had 73 members, the Water Boys.
The Water Boys.
I know, I didn't see that coming.
But Santana were not
Santana, 67 members in whatever it is, about 55 years. Iron Butterfly, 59.
Iron Butterfly.
Dexys Midnight. The one they left out, actually, I don't think was in that list, famously, was The Fall. I mean, there are rumours that The Fall has many 60 members, but The Fall certainly had 43 members. There was a great piece in Viz once, called a spoof piece, which started off with the immortal words, most people in Britain have been a member of The Fall at some stage of their lives, which is really good. And it reminded me that there were 3 people who were thrown out of The Fall under the most extraordinary circumstances. Mark Riley was sacked, supposedly for dancing to Deep Purple. Yeah, Mark E. Smith saw him dancing to Deep Purple in some club on his wedding day. He was sacked for this crime. I mean, I'm sure he had a reason for sacking him. He was just using this as a kind of characterful Mark E. Smith type thing. Somebody else was sacked for fiddling with Mark E. Smith's amp, and somebody else for eating a salad. Sound engineer who ate a salad in front of him, and then discovered that the tour bus didn't pick him up the next morning. Amazing. Canned Heat, 43 members.
There was no HR department in The Fall.
Absolutely none.
You couldn't take it to
No.
Canned Heat, how many?
Canned Heat have had 43 members as well.
My goodness.
Cradle of Filth, 39. Simply Red, 26.
How many members of Canned Heat can you name?
Well, I can probably remember the original 5. Are we going to do it?
We're going to do it.
Fito Della Para on drums.
Okay.
Larry the Mole Taylor on bass. Henry the Sunflower on guitar. The Blind Owl.
Blind Owl
Wilson on lead guitar, I think it was. And
Bob the Bear
Height, the singer. Not bad. Did 5 of them.
We did 5. I can go a bit further. Harvey Mandel joined when Henry Vestine left. And then
I love this. I love it. In some small corner of a foreign field, there are 2 blokes in Soho running through ex-members of Canned Heat. Oh, God, I love it.
Oh, very good.
But also, think about the groups who've had the fewest members. ZZ Top, up until recently.
Oh, it's true.
They've gone for 50 years with the same
that's
same
true.
line. But you two, I do think it's worth making. You two have been going nearly 50 years now with the 4 blokes you met at school. Now, I always say, Imagine, just pick randomly 3 people you were at school with at the age of 15.
Yeah, and imagine
keep them in your head for a moment. Now imagine you had to be in business and in a creative context and in a tour bus and an airplane.
So, listeners, here's a game you can play. It's the U2 game.
Yeah.
Go and find an old school photograph of your class.
Yeah.
From when you were like 16, 17.
Yeah.
I get it. Now pick 3 people just randomly with a pen.
Yeah.
Now imagine you've been in a group with them for 50 years.
And how do you feel? Yeah. Obviously, if the money's pouring in, fine. But
it's still
a strain,
it's
isn't
still
it?
an odd
It's
one.
still a strain. No, that's amazing. I think that's incredible. Husker Du, Blur, Muse, The Strokes, and Radiohead. None of them have ever changed their lineups.
Yeah.
Pretty good, isn't it?
It's remarkably good.
It is. No, I mean,
They've probably all got, kind of similar profit-sharing arrangements to the ones that you two have got.
Yeah, certainly.
So nobody's falling out because they're not making as much money as the songwriter.
Exactly. So there'd be no reason to leave, precisely. We should mention, I think, just very briefly, Geoff Davis. Do you remember Geoff Davis?
Right, yes.
Geoff Davis, very sadly, died just the other day. Geoff Davis was a Liverpudlian character who started Probe Records, the record shop, and Probe Plus, the label, which signed Half Man, Half Biscuit and The Farm and Attila the Stockbroker and various people. But otherwise, really interesting character because he's a bit like Bruce Findlay was in Edinburgh with Bruce's records, and Terry Hooley, remember? Good Vibrations in Belfast. That he's one of these guys who had a record shop and invited in, waifs, strays, miscreants, misfits, creative types. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The lost, the lonely, the different. The kind of people actually often went on to form bands. Pete Burns of Dead or Alive, lots of pictures of him working in Probe Records when he was a teenager. And he did all of that, the exotic flora and fauna, he once described them as. He's a really interesting, opinionated guy. I was looking at an interview that he did the other day, and I guess give an example of a couple of things he said. It was really, really amazing. So he must have been, I suppose, about mid-70s, because he's talking about going to see the Beatles in the Cavern. So the first time I saw the Beatles, I didn't get them at all. There were only 1 of 2 non-jazz bands playing that night when I first encountered them. Kenny Ball was headlining and the Beatles came on at around 2 a.m. The noise they made. They used amplifiers that none of the jazz bands did back then. A few seconds was enough for me and my mate. We went down to the pier head where there was an all-night tea and pie stall and we hung out there until we thought it would be safe to go back in again. That was such a great thing to say because normally people would go, I saw the Beatles change my life.
They were brilliant.
They were absolutely brilliant. That was really great. He did, however, go on to see them about 50 times more. He talks about a record shop. It's so opinionated, and this is really why he formed a record shop. He said there was a place called Edwards in Kensington. It was the only kind of second-hand record shop. Kensington, which is a part of Liverpool. So I went in there trying to buy the Doors, Waiting for the Sun. The guy behind the counter wouldn't let me hear the tracks from the record. Wouldn't even remove the sleeve from the window to let me look at it. And he put me off spending my money, and it just left me thinking I could do a better job. So that's why he started a record.
Didn't he
record
dedicate
shop.
himself to making sure everybody in Liverpool heard Forever Changes by Love?
I think he did.
He never tried that on me. Well, I wasn't at Liverpool.
No, well, you would take some converting, and that's not one of your favourites.
No, I mean, to be fair, with Forever Changes, I try again every year. I do.
Yeah.
Once a year, I get it out, I put it on. Yeah.
No, still nothing. Still nothing. Feel anything? The earth move? No. Not at all.
It's a really odd thing. I'm fair about it. I am trying.
Yeah.
But you can't try with music at all.
No.
So, Probe, I have a dim and distant memory of going in there once. God knows how many years ago. I mean, it wasn't far from the Cavern, was it?
I think quite nearby. Yeah.
And it was on a corner. I seem to remember it on a corner of Cobble Street. And forgive me, anyone in Liverpool, if I got that wrong. I do remember going in there. But obviously a man with, a great little affection for him.
Oh, people absolutely loved him. I mean, he probably won't get massive obits anywhere, but I think he was just a very, very important figure. All those bands like the Teardrop Explosion, Echo and the Bunnymen and Big Engine Band, all those people kind of met. They would either meet in Eric's Club or they'd go to Probe Records, and that's where they all hung around.
It's the early managers matter so much.
Yeah, they do.
With all bands, don't they?
Yeah.
They're the people who believe in them when nobody else does.
Yeah.
And they're very often the people who lose their houses as a consequence of their kind of, bailing them out in early days.
Yeah.
It tends to happen. So, I know what I wanted to say to you. I heard a thing this morning which stopped me in my tracks. I was listening to a very good podcast from the New York Times, which is, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. It's about technology. And it was basically talking about surveillance technology and so forth. And they said, just as a throwaway, said, bear in mind that in your lifetime, your phone may fall into the hands of the police and they will know everything there is to know about you instantly. And it really made me think. Because it's obvious, really. You know, if the police come dealing with anybody, you know, kind of suspicious, you know, situation or whatever, if you get somebody's phone, you can immediately look at the photographs. You can immediately see where they live, who they live with, who they're married to, what they do.
Well, it tells you with every picture. It'll tell you where it was taken and what day it was taken. And actually, it will even tell you who the people in the pictures are. So you're bang to right.
There's no point interviewing anybody any longer, is it? It's just all there.
Yeah.
Sorry, that really made...
No, it really is astonishing.
Never occurred.
As a mate of mine, I can remember telling me this about 10 or 15 years ago. He said to his son that he must erase a lot of the pictures that he has on his site. You know, because he'll never get a job if people go and look at it. Just pictures of, I don't mean anything particularly dodgy, just pictures of him kind of with a load of lads waving bottles of Budweiser at the camera, because that's going to be, if you're being interviewed for a job and they're going to research you, then the first thing they're going to do is go and look at your Instagram or something and think, oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
So anybody getting hold of your phone, just see a load of pictures of you and me sitting talking.
I know.
Talking about Pete Brown's battered
Talking
ornaments.
about Prince Edward's Magic Theatre.
See if we can name
a criminal offence.
Former members of Gnidralog. That kind of thing. So what else were we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Simon Raymond had said a thing about CDs coming
Oh, God, yes, Simon Raymond. Very interesting. Simon Raymond of 4AD and Cocktail Twins and so forth. He posted a thing the other week saying that for the first time in living memory, they had sold more CDs than they had sold long-playing records. Yeah. And I thought, is the comeback that I have long predicted?
Well, I think you're right.
Is it happening?
Right.
Is the tides turning? Because I've just been in the record shop round the corner before I met you. And, Taylor Swift vinyl, £50.
Well, this is it. It's what it costs.
50 quid.
Fop Records. Last time I went to Fop Records, I had a look at Blonde on Blonde by Dylan. It was £3. That's a double album for £3 on CD, which is amazing. It also struck me, not only is it cheaper, it also struck me there's a lot to do with, obviously, the sound quality, because people are just used to fantastically pristine sound quality, which you don't always get on vinyl unless you have, because A, it may be a really knackered old copy.
Yeah.
B, you actually have to have some very expensive equipment to play it on, to make it sound.
And also, there's
good.
the perennial danger that you will scratch it.
And you might scratch it.
Whereas it doesn't really happen with a CD at all.
And that anybody between the age of about 30 and 50, for them, that was the main format, really, wasn't it, for a long time? So you're going to feel some kind of affection for it. But I think they're completely different experiences. Listening to CDs, also there's the physical aspect of it. You listen to a load of streams and you start to really like one particular act or one particular artist or band, whatever. Then you want to go back and have physical copies of those things, because otherwise the kind of folklore, the composite picture of them doesn't really take place until you can have sleeve notes, pictures of physical things.
Yeah.
So I can really understand that, and you can collect them, But no, it struck me that that the vinyl experience it's a slightly different thing, don't you think? Listening to vinyl is very much kind of I'm listening to vinyl rather than just listening to music. It's vinyl. Record playing now, hashtag. Isn't it? It's kind of what I'm actually doing is going back and finding an old antique.
It's an antique.
It's an antique. It's like a piece of old furniture, and I'm putting it on, and I'm going back to 1967 or something. I'm revisiting this particular moment, And that's a totally different thing from just bunging a CD or thing.
Yeah. So, will we see the comeback of CD shops? Actual shops in the high street selling CDs? Is it possible? Because, as we said before, we're in the West End of London right now. You used to be able to walk all the way down Oxford Street, and there was Virgin, there was HMV, there was Tower, there was all these places. We could just kill hours, couldn't you, in the record shops? And you haven't been able to do that for years. Whereas the experience of walking down Oxford Street nowadays is boring. There's nowhere where you want to linger
not
at all.
Remotely, no.
Not at all. Not even a US
trainers.
candy shop.
Yes, candy shop.
Or, if you want to go steaming through a Sports Direct or whatever and see how many pairs of trainers you can get away with. So we shall watch that with interest to see if any of that stuff comes back. Well, I know the other thing. We, if you're a Patreon supporter and you haven't already done so, don't forget to join us for our Friday night quiz, which starts at 6 o'clock on Friday, where basically we give you a load of picture clues. It takes place via Zoom. We give you a load of picture clues, and you have to guess which LP we're talking about.
It used to be a band, but we've done so many of them.
We've run out of bands.
We've run out of bands. It's now a particularly famous classic album.
And the last one we did, or last week actually, which we forgot to talk about actually, was the Human League's Dare, which is an extraordinary thing, really.
Fantastic.
That is Virgin's. It was Virgin's third #1 album. Do you know what numbers 1 and 2 were?
Numbers 1 and 2, I think, were Tubular Bells and Hergest Ridge.
Except that they were in the other order.
Oh, okay.
Hergest Ridge went to #1 first.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I never knew this.
Oh, God.
And then, obviously, on the back of it, Tubular Bells got to #1.
Wow.
And then it was Dare by the Human League. And then the next one was the first Phil Collins. Yeah.
Was it Face Value?
Face Value, I think it is.
Yeah.
And it is still amazing to reflect when thinking about the Human League's Dare that Phil Oakey didn't want Don't You Want Me.
Didn't want it on there. Isn't it the last track, the second side?
It's the last track on the whole album.
Didn't want it.
He didn't want it on there. He certainly didn't want it as a single. I think it was the 4th single from that album, wasn't it? I think it was Simon Draper, who ran Virgin, pretty much overruled them and said, that's coming out as a single.
Yeah.
And it went to #1 when are we talking about? Christmas 1982.
Yeah.
And it's only through the good graces of that record that we were spared the Christmas #1 that year, being Cliff Richard and Daddy's Home.
Daddy's Home. Incredible. It struck me when we were doing that quiz that we'd interviewed Martin Ware. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
This is about a year ago. We interviewed Martin Ware about a memoir, a very, very good memoir he had. And he was talking about the very bitter breakup of the Human League when he and Ian Craig Marsh were booted out. And they formed the BEF and they started to make a record. And the only place they could do it was the same studio as the Human League were in. And I think it was they worked at night, the Human League worked in the day, I can't remember what it was. But they said one day there was unbelievable animosity between them. Incredible rivalry too. And he said that they found some tape and stuck it on one of the reels and played it. And it was an early kind of demo of some of the Human League material that eventually finished up on Dare with the 2 girls singing it. And they just breathed a massive sigh of relief and thought, this is absolute garbage. There is no way that the Human League, without us, are ever going to get anywhere in this world. And the happy end of the story actually was that both groups did really, really well.
Well, because they got 1%, didn't they?
They got 1% of it, exactly. But oh no, it was fun doing the quiz. One of the clues was a slide with Norman Wisdom on it and the Ramones.
Yeah,
and it's lovely because it's things that dreams are made of, isn't it?
Norman Wisdom, Johnny, Joey, Dee, Good Times.
Good Times.
And another clue was Michael Caine in Get Carter.
Yeah.
Because of course the theme from Get Carter is on the album. So Roy Budd, who I think is the person who wrote the theme from Get Carter, must have made quite a few quid out of that.
Yeah.
Because it was a huge hit record in America. And how is the American edition of Dare different from the British edition of Dare, Mark?
One of them, the American one, I think has an exclamation mark.
Has an exclamation mark
at the end of Dare. Which was something inspired by a cover of Vogue.
Cover of Vogue. Yes, we had the actual cover of Vogue.
Yeah,
and so if you're fascinated by things like that, join us every Friday evening. You're a Patreon supporter, and if you're not fascinated by things like that, What the hell's wrong with you?
This podcast was brought to you by The Word.